Hi, and welcome to another episode of SWITCHCast, a podcast delving into the world of film brought to you by the team at Switch. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Charlie David Page.
I'm Jess Benton.
And I'm Brent Davidson.
It's Thursday the 30th of August 2018. On this week's show, I'll chat to the Aussie directors behind their debut feature, Kin.
We've got Zoë Kravitz, who really was kind of our number one on the list, and it took us a while to get her. She was reading a lot of material at the time, but once we did, we went to lunch with her, and halfway through the lunch, she just looked at us and said, "You guys know I'm doing your movie, right?" And we were like, we know, but we do now.
That's the directors of Kin, my interview with them ahead.
And as always, all our reviews and giveaways.
Let's get straight into it with Crazy Rich Asians. Rachel Chu, Constance Wu, is a professor living in New York, dating Nick Young, Henry Golding, for a year when he invites her back to his family's home in Singapore for a wedding. It's a huge shock to Rachel that the Young family are extremely prominent, and they're crazy rich.
Mum, this is Rachel Chu.
She just thinks you're some, unrefined banana.
No. Those are a few fingers.
Yellow on the outside or white on the inside.
Do something crazy!
I chose to raise a family. For me, it was a privilege. But for you, you may think it's old-fashioned.
Don't you want Nick to be happy?
I know you're not what Nick needs.
She's like trying to play a game of chicken with me, thinking I'm gonna swerve like a chicken.
But you can't swerve. You gonna roll up and be like,
Bok, bitch.
okay, maybe not as aggressive.
Another day, another breath.
I know this much. You will never be enough.
It's about time someone stood up to Auntie Eleanor. Well, you, not me. Oh, God. She can't know I was ever here.
So, two important points about this film. One, this is a very attractive cast. And two, it's a whole lot of fun, but it's also a pretty classic rom-com. It's a little more involved than the usual, given the cultural hurdles, but in the end, this is a tried and true romantic comedy formula. Which doesn't mean it's not enjoyable. Quite the opposite. Constance Wu is a delight to watch, and she and Awkwafina create some of the funniest parts of the movie together. It's also really nice that she and Henry Golding have a genuine chemistry and likability too. Granted, 2 hours is a little bit of a stretch for a rom-com, but that's the only real criticism I have. Crazy Rich Asians is a light-hearted, amusing, and witty outing, with enough emotion to bring out the romantic in you. 3.5 stars.
All right, as the resident crazy Asian, who is also Singaporean, relatable. I'm jumping in here. I really, really enjoyed this movie. More than anything, it's because it's a rom-com. Where have all the rom-coms gone? This is the first one I can remember seeing in forever, and watching this movie, I just got that wave of nostalgia and happy times from the 90s and the early 2000s where they were everywhere, and they just make you feel so happy and good. I laughed, I cried, I had stirrings in my lady bits for Henry Golding. It was such a good watch.
Wow.
And not only that, but because, as obvious in the title, the rich part, the opulence of this film is amazing. We're talking the clothes and the jewelry and the settings, and there's a wedding in this film that will make you just go, holy shitballs. And everyone is very, very pretty. But also, the biggest revelation I thought was Constance Wu. I thought she was fantastic. She was an incredible lead. She was an incredibly strong performer who led this film like a boss bitch that she is. And, you just kind of sit there and go, where has she been this whole time?
On Fresh Off the Boat, Jess.
Yeah, I know.
I think that's really interesting because I found Constance Wu and Henry Golding to be the more... I mean, I know that it's the sort of shtick of the genre that they have to be more sort of boring in comparison to the supporting players, who I was obsessed with.
Yeah, they're very down to earth, those two. They're the normal ones.
They have
everyone
to be
else
the
is
normal ones.
Nuts.
The gay cousin was incredible. Awkwafina was incredible. And the mother, oh my God.
That whole family, and even the brother, the creepy brother, who got most of the laughs in our screening.
Yeah.
Oh, Awkwafina's creepy brother.
Awkwafina's creepy brother, yeah. But I guess it's also really important for us to discuss this from a cultural perspective, because that's a big element of the film. There is not a single white person in this film, and that's really quite spectacular. And what I wrote in my review, and you guys can agree or disagree with this, but I wrote the fact that, this is basically the first time we've seen a total Asian cast in a big Hollywood film, in the same way that earlier this year we saw the first mainstream queer film with Love, Simon. And the thing which kind of strings them together is they don't deviate from the idea of what these traditional films are. Like, this sticks very much to the rom-com idea. Love, Simon stuck very much to the idea of a teen drama kind of coming-of-age thing.
I would add Black Panther into the mix as well.
Because that was a really great rom-com?
No, because it was a really great action movie that stuck to its tropes, but had an almost entirely African-American cast. I think the thing is, it's about these films being genre films that are important not because of the story that they tell, but because of how they are portrayed. Like, I walked out of Crazy Rich Asians with a similar feeling as how I walked out of Black Panther, being like, that was a excellent genre piece. That was an excellent action movie, but the most important part of it is the cultural representation, obviously. But that's not what the film is so much about, but it says so much in that.
I think you kind of lost something. I do think that the culture is a huge part of Crazy Rich Asians. It is about Asians versus Asian Americans, but not in a harsh light or, one versus the other. It's just that simple
acknowledgement that it exists.
That simple cultural divide. It's not one is better or one is worse or one is evil or one is good. It's just that cultural divide, which I think is actually a really beautiful part of the story.
Oh yeah, there were people of Asian descent just going batshit crazy in my screening. Like all the little bits where someone would say "la," that got a laugh every time.
Singaporean, yeah.
And it's already been greenlit for a sequel. So
That's exciting.
The millions upon millions of dollars that this film is making and the praise that it's heaping, we're going to get a second dose, and I'm really excited.
Well, there's a series of books, so they've got plenty of source material. And the best thing is, like, there's been a lot of backlash online as well because they use the word Asian in the title. And the word crazy as well, I guess. But
But the crazy
not
refers to
referring
the
to their
money,
mental
not the
health.
Asians.
No,
More like
I
crazy rich Asian.
I know, you don't have to tell me.
There are no commas in the title. It's not crazy,
But people
comma,
being like,
rich,
oh, you can't
comma,
be like
Asian.
crazy Asians are crazy, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, oh, guys, it's written by Asian people. They can say it. It's fine.
Look, the best is still yet to come for this film because essentially it's only at this point been released in the US. As of today, it's pretty much going everywhere worldwide. So we're going to see how it performs in Singapore, in Asia broader, in China. I think it'll do big business there. So it's going to be really exciting to see how this actually performs at the box office and the response that it has worldwide. So you can catch my full review at maketheswitch.com.au, and Crazy Rich Asians is in cinemas now. Also out today is Three Identical Strangers. Jess caught this film for the Sydney Film Festival, so was this unbelievably true story thrice as fascinating?
Eddie, David, and Robert are three identical brothers who were separated at birth and adopted into three different Jewish New York families. They don't meet until 1980 at the age of 19 under amazing and coincidental circumstances. What follows is one of the most extraordinary stories ever told, one that even the greatest literary minds couldn't come up with. It is a story of both love and tragedy, and one whose repercussions are still being experienced today far beyond just the three boys.
You guys have been on the front page of every newspaper in the world.
True. They were more like clones than they were like brothers.
It was a miracle.
There was nothing that could keep us apart.
That's when things kind of got funky.
They separated these boys at birth. The parents had never been told that there were two other children. What was the purpose?
Why? How could you not tell us?
They're trying to conceal what they did from the people they did it to.
When you play with humans, you do something very wrong.
Who would be evil enough to come up with something like this?
Three Identical Strangers is a film that is not what it seems on the surface, hence this very vague review. It is a film that switches gears for an Act 2 that no one could see coming. Due to the very public nature of these boys reuniting back in the 80s, the library of print and television interviews used throughout the film is amazing, as well as paparazzi photos as the boys became minor celebrities and interviews with persons of interest due to meticulous research by the filmmaking team. I cannot put into words the extent of emotions I feel towards this film. I encourage everyone humanly possible to see it, and I give it 5 stars.
Now, Jess, I know that Jake felt exactly the same way about this, and, without actually giving away too much of the story, because that's the last thing we want to do. I mean, this had such a big response at Sydney Film Festival, and also at Melbourne International Film Festival, where it screened. I mean, it seems like so much of the success of the film itself has been brought about just by word of mouth, really.
Yeah, and I'm so excited I'm always excited when documentaries get released and when they get the attention that they deserve. This is definitely one of them. Without going into too much detail, because this film has so many layers and so many, it almost plays like a mystery as well, almost like a detective mystery. So one thing I should say, without going into too much detail, is that the first half of this film focuses on the three boys and them, first of all, finding out that they are in fact triplets and then reuniting, and the life that they create for themselves as a result of this, discovering you have not one but two brothers and identical in their fame. But the second half of the film, which you're so swept up in this beautiful reunited story that you kind of forget this sinister underbelly of the tale, which is who and why and how could anyone with a soul separate three identical babies. And that's what the second half of this film deals with. And what comes about is just incredible. And I think that's the part that really sort of captures everyone's attention. And you leave the film with so many questions and also like a major ethical and moral debate that rages as a result of what comes about. And I can't recommend this film enough. There's so much to it, and everyone will get something different from it, I feel. And it is just simply extraordinary.
Look, I've got to say, from everything I've heard about this film, I'm very intrigued to see it. And if it's anywhere near as good as you guys have told me that it is, I think I'll be blown away.
Three Identical Strangers is in very limited release now at the Cremorne Orpheum in Sydney and Cinema Nova in Melbourne. Everyone, hunt it down, and you can check out my full review at maketheswitch.com.au.
Also out today is The Insult. Jake caught this Oscar-nominated film as part of the Sydney Film Festival and filed this review for us.
A Palestinian Muslim, Yassar, played by Kamal El-Bashar, working for a builder in Beirut, is accidentally splashed with water, so he fixes a broken drain pipe on the balcony of a Lebanese Christian man's apartment. Moments later, the tenant, an auto mechanic named Tony, played by Adel Karam, inexplicably loses his temper and smashes the new pipe. And then things escalate. Much of The Insult unfolds as a Law and Order style courtroom drama, egged on by their respective attorneys, the pro-Christian Waja, played by Camille Salameh, and Nadine, played by Diamond Bouadoud. The courtroom debate slowly segues from who splashed water on whom to the intricacies of the Lebanese civil war. The Insult is directed by Ziad Doueri, a Sunni Muslim who wrote the script with his ex-wife and frequent collaborator, Joel Tuma, a Christian. They've made a career of creating films with narratives from balanced perspectives set in the volatile Middle East. Just a warning, this is a film packed with verbiage, but the high volume of exposition is extremely useful in guiding a viewer uneducated in the Middle Eastern conflict, like me, through the battleground of race, politics, and history, using masculine aggression as an allegory for escalating conflict. Luckily, the film also has regular lashings of dry humour to lighten the mood at appropriate times. The Insult raises interesting and timely questions that resonate well beyond the Middle East. 5 stars.
I also had the great fortune of seeing The Insult, and quite a while after Jake had written his review for it, and I was also blown away by how fixating this film is. I mean, I did go in with a slight concept that this might be a bit of a dry foreign film, maybe something very politically heavy, but honestly, it is something that grips you from the very first moment and keeps you feeling so tense and so involved in the story that you just want to keep watching it. And as Jake said, this is largely a courtroom drama. So much of this plays out in the courtroom, and kind of as these layers peel back of what has happened, and it becomes a much wider picture than just the incident that happened between these two men, and becomes this grand political statement of what is happening in Lebanon. It's truly fascinating to watch, but at the same time, don't get me wrong, there's no point here where you're like, oh, this is getting dull and boring and too political. It is absolutely fascinating on so many levels because it retains that personal conflict the entire way through, which is really what gives it the heart and the drive of the film. So honestly, I also, along with Jake, could not recommend this film enough.
Yeah, all I've seen of it is the trailer, and even I was found that gripping. Like, I was just watching it going, who did what? Who said what? What's going on? What's happening? And then you hear that boom boom from the Law and Order.
But not really.
And then Sarah Koenig comes along and says, next time on the inside.
It was an incredibly made trailer, and from the sounds of it, it was a reflection of the film itself. But even that, what was it, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, whatever it was just all tension and intrigue. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, I am seeing this.
And then you were like, ba-boom, ba-ba-ba-da-boom, wow.
And Dick Wolf's name comes up at the end.
No, it's 100% true. The tension reigns throughout this film, and it is also just incredibly intriguing.
I guess my question is for you, Charlie, though. When I saw the trailer, I sort of had this feeling in my mind that it might be something that could get really trapped inside a film festival. So, like, do you think it will appeal to those beyond the film festival sort of circuit? Because I know that there's one thing to say that it's really great for a film festival and it's a great film. Don't get me wrong, I think it looks great as well, but I just would hope that it would be that gripping for the wider populace.
Well, that's what I would try to convince people. I mean, yes, it is a foreign film, and yes, it is something that was very popular at film festivals, and yes, it was nominated for the best foreign language film at the Oscars, but do not let that stop you from watching this, because it is an absolutely fascinating drama. I mean, forget the fact that, yes, it has subtitles, and forget the fact that, yes, it's in a foreign language, and it does involve a degree of political drama, but put all that aside and make sure you go see this film. I think that it shows more widely why you should be empathetic towards other people. That's the really big thing, and just watching that all unfold, it's spectacular.
Let's all just be better people to each other.
Well, you can find Jake's full review at maketheswitch.com.au, and The Insult is in cinemas now. Also out today is Kin. Eli, newcomer Miles Truitt, finds a strange weapon in an abandoned warehouse. When his older brother Jimmy, played by Jack Reynor, gets out of prison and things go south with criminal Taylor Ballock, played by James Franco, Jimmy takes Eli on the run with the weapon. Chased by the police, Ballock, and the soldiers who are after the weapon, Jimmy and Eli have to rely on each other to survive.
Let him go.
What the hell is that?
I found it.
Somebody's got to be looking for this thing. He's here somewhere.
Dangerous people are coming after us.
I know I'm not a good guy, but it's been pretty incredible to be brothers for the first time.
Whatever you've gotten him into, he's gonna figure it out eventually.
Despite some sci-fi elements, the film is definitely focused on the family drama. The strength of Kin lies in the relationship between the brothers, and the dynamics between Miles Truitt and Jack Reynor are impressive. This dynamic's only strengthened further when Millie, played by Zoë Kravitz, joins the duo, bringing a very maternal element to the film. In fact, the on-screen relationship between Millie and Eli may be one of the best things about Kin. Visually impressive, the film has a symmetrical cinematography style, balancing grungy dark looks with bold and bright colours. The special effects are also noteworthy, tastefully done on a small budget. With an exciting cast and a new take on old tropes, Kin only goes to prove old stories can be retold in intriguing new ways. 3 stars.
Look, I'm a big fan of Jack Reynor and Zoë Kravitz and Dennis Quaid, and it looks beautiful. And obviously, when you watch like the trailer for it, it has all the right big names, like, you know, from the makers of Stranger Things and Arrival, and both great projects. But I just feel like, help me out here, Charlie, because obviously you saw it. I just feel like this entire film could have been wiped away if the kid just put the weapon down and walked away.
Nah, he's defending his First or Second Amendment right to carry arms, right? You gotta take that gun and run, babes.
It's like, who picks up like a giant alien gun and goes, yeah, I'm gonna take this home?
I would.
Exactly, Brent would. But no, I mean, it's much more than that. Like, as I say, the crux crux of this is not so much about that sci-fi element. It's actually about the family relations and the fact that Jimmy has to go on the run and takes Eli with him. He's forced to because of certain circumstances that happen. So what actually plays out is more the road trip / trying to escape all these bad guys, or kind of bad guys, because Jimmy is not an ideal brother. Like, he's a bit of an asshole. He drinks a lot. He takes his underage brother to like strip clubs and things like that, and he's carrying around tens of thousands of dollars of stolen money. So he's not a really great influence on Eli at all. So it's this really interesting family relationship that they have, and it's actually much more about that, with a bit of sci-fi woven in throughout it.
But like, is it justified that they're just protecting a gun the whole time? Like, I understand, and we'll get to it a little bit later, but like, finding an alien friend and he's really cute or whatever and keeping him around and not letting the government get them, E.T. phone home. But like, a gun? Babes, just hand it over. Oh, I've said babes way too much. Sorry, everyone. You know, like, it's a gun. It's not a cute alien. It's not Drew Barrymore.
But again, that's only one of the groups who's chasing them. The James Franco character is actually the biggest threat to them, because Jimmy kills James Franco's brother in the film. So he's seeking revenge. But also the police are after them because of bad shit that Jimmy has done as well. So it's this culmination of events. It's not just the gun. So don't get fixated on the whole idea of it being a sci-fi film.
Charlie, can I ask you this? So you've given it 3 stars out of 5. What lost it those 2 stars?
I go into it a little bit further in my review, but...
Jeez, way to read it, Jess.
It's on my list of things to do, right?
Yeah.
It does go on a little bit longer than it possibly needs to. I mean, in the end, it is a small budget film, so it does have certain limitations, and there are times when the sci-fi element maybe becomes a little bit too intense. I think the reason I gave it 3 stars is because, like, I enjoyed it. It was good, and it was interesting, and it was different, but it also wasn't necessarily mind-blowing to me. What struck me most of all was the relationship between the 2 brothers, and that's kind of what made me really enjoy the film.
Okay.
Well, Kin is in cinemas now, and check out my full review at maketheswitch.com.au. Plus, keep listening for my interview with Kin directors Jonathan and Josh Baker. Also out today is Lewis and the Aliens. Brent put on his tinfoil hat to check this one out. So, is the film out of this world?
Lewis is a bullied 12-year-old boy. His whole world is out to get him, and his father, a head-in-the-cloud ufologist, is not much help, sleeping in the day and stargazing at night, but always neglecting his son. With no friends, no family, and no hope, everything changes when aliens land in his backyard.
They're real?
We will obliterate you!
No, please!
We don't know how to do that. He doesn't know that.
We're looking to get our hands on one of our nubby-dubbies.
What?
A nubby-dubby massage mat.
This is your last chance. Only 13 nubby-dubbies left.
13 left?
12.
Can you pilot this thing?
Have I ever let you down?
Does this all sound a bit familiar to you? Well, that's because it's been made up entirely of elements from far better children's films. And it takes a lot for this type of film to be lifted out of its genre, and sadly Lewis and the Aliens doesn't quite get out of this world. Barely off the ground, in fact. Once the novelty of the cute and trying to be charming aliens wears off, there is very little left for the viewers who the film was intended for. There is a reason for the success of such films as Inside Out and Coco, and that's because not for one moment do they misjudge the aptitude of their audience. For a 3D animation, it was surprisingly flat, and that's why I give it 1.5 stars.
Oh, that's harsh.
Ouch.
But, I mean, Brent, the big question is here. You are well known for getting a little bit emotional in these kinds of films. Children's films especially.
Baby.
So, what all of the Switchcast audience is asking is, did you cry?
Not one tear.
No, what all the Switchcast audience are asking is, did you watch this on a plane?
Surprisingly not. I watched this in bed. I was just not impressed. It was just really, really weird. And I don't know that if it was redubbed in English, because I don't think it was originally created in English. So there were just some moments where the dialogue seemed to be either a little stretched or a little compressed. So the scenes just had no sort of flow or structure. It kind of felt to me, and this sounds really awful because I did a digital media degree, but it felt like a sort of extended final project of a uni student.
It's so sad that you feel this way because, Brent, you won the privilege of watching this film after a huge fight among the Switch cast members. So it's just so disappointing.
I know, Brent takes another one for the team and it's just doesn't pan out.
You campaigned so hard to watch this film. It's tragic, really.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, I'm kind of the resident go-to children's film watcher / crier. So I was expecting a lot and I just ended up being really disappointed. There was nothing original, nothing captivating, and nothing enjoyable about this.
Sad.
Well, you can find my full review at maketheswitch.com.au. And Lewis and the Aliens is in cinemas now, inexplicably.
Also out today is The Flip Side. Ronnie, Emily Tahini, is a struggling restaurateur living with her boyfriend Jeff, Luke Mackenzie. 5 years ago, while catering on a film set, she had an intense affair with British movie star Henry, played by Eddie Izzard. Despite wild declarations of love, as the movie wrapped, so did the relationship, crushing Ronnie's heart. When Henry's French girlfriend calls to say that they will be in town on a promotional tour, Jeff excitedly agrees to meet up and unwittingly creates the perfect opportunity for Henry to seduce Ronnie all over again.
Have the guess who called here today? Henry Selbert.
Oh, so you told Jeff about him? No. Why would I do that? Ronnie, be careful. Don't be so dramatic, Sam. It's fine.
Will you ever forgive me?
Jeff, I need to tell you something. Why are you with me?
Because I love you.
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one. Also out today is Mile 22. The film stars Mark Wahlberg as an elite American intelligence officer, aided by a top-secret tactical commando unit who tries to smuggle a mysterious police officer with sensitive information out of the country.
What is your name?
Reynor.
Are you involved in acts of espionage?
Yes.
I have information that proves my government is planning an attack on the United States.
You have no idea how evil my government is.
Put me on a plane to the US and I'll give you everything.
Let's take a drive.
You're going up against this country's elite tactical squads.
I need him back right now.
No one ever enters a war thinking they will lose. But one side is always wrong.
I'm gonna give you some advice. You ready? Stop.
Failure is not an option. If we get him out, we save millions of lives.
Now let's take a look at our most anticipated film of the week in our trailer wrap. The Switch team fell head over heels for Call Me By Your Name. Now director Luca Guadagnino is following it up with the highly anticipated Suspiria, with a strong female cast including Chloe Grace Moretz, Dakota Johnson, and Tilda Swinton.
Yay!
Yes, Queen.
At the beginning, she gave me things. Perfect balance, perfect sleep. Oh, she wants to get inside of me. I can feel her. Oh, she can see me.
When you dance the dance of another, you make yourself in the image of its creator.
I feel like I'm not even here yet.
The dumpling's incredible.
1, 2, 3.
The way she transmits her work.
You have to decide, what is it you want to be for this company?
There's more in that building than what you can see, Doctor.
You're making some kind of deal with them.
What even is this about?
It's about ballerinas, darling.
No, it's about the devil.
It's also about witches and a coven and...
Let's be honest, though. Tilda Swinton is a boss witch in every situation, so
Yeah, she is.
she deserves that role.
I got such mother vibes watching this trailer. Hi, Darren Aronofsky.
A little bit, yeah.
My God,
Darren
we've
Aronofsky.
managed to mention both Tilda and Darren today. The gods
Yes.
are... We are back, baby.
I know.
I've just said baby again. Oh.
No, I did. I got such mother vibes because I didn't know what the fuck this movie was about. And it just looked creepy as and weird and vague. I am excited about it because obviously Tilda, obviously Luca Guadagnino, but also I can't remember this film. I think it was the Venice Film Festival where there was a lot of chatter after this film screened about people walking out during one particular scene that involves, I think, a mirror in a ballet studio, and you do get like a half-second glimpse of it in the trailer, and I was like,
it's pretty intense as it is.
This is going to be good.
Yeah, basically after that she dances the entire Canned Heat dance from the end of Center Stage.
Oh my god,
it is chilling.
Okay, this is nothing to do with Center Stage, but here are a few important things that our viewers need to know about Suspiria. So this film is actually, believe it or not, is actually a remake. It's based off a 1977 Italian supernatural horror film. It's kind of a bit of a classic in its genre, and the big thing here is that it has a very distinctive look, and Luca Guadagnino has gone with something that's stunningly lush, and it's really beautifully darkly gothic. It's a really interesting looking trailer for that regards to the cinematography in this looks to be absolutely amazing. So despite the story and everything that does seem to be a little on the confusing side, definitely it looks to be a fucking beautifully shot film.
Yeah, and how crazy is Dakota Johnson as a Ranger?
Yeah, she
It
looks
changes
so
the look
different, right?
Completely.
Yeah.
I actually think you'll find that it's not Dakota Johnson, it's actually just Tilda Swinton.
Tilda Swinton is everybody in this film.
Yeah, Tilda Swinton is everybody, always.
All for one and one for Tilda Swinton.
You can watch Suspiria in Australian cinemas from the 8th of November, and for all the latest trailers, head to youtube.com/MakeTheSwitchAU.
It takes a lot of work to put together a debut feature film. Even more so when you're trying to convince big-name stars like James Franco, Zoë Kravitz, and Dennis Quaid to come on board. Two Aussie directors, who are twins no less, managed just that for their film Kin. I spoke to them from Los Angeles about how they turned their dream into a reality. Jonathan and Josh Baker, thanks so much for joining us on SWITCHCast. You have your new movie Kin out today, and this is definitely a bit of a genre-bending film. Could you give us a bit of an idea what the film's about?
Yeah, firstly, thanks for having us, man. This is Jonathan, and Josh is here on my lap. Appreciate the opportunity to chat to you. Well, I think the very, very short version, and we used this when we were pitching it around town, was just that it's a character drama hidden inside a sci-fi film. We were more interested in the story of these two brothers than I guess we were with the big, giant sci-fi elements, even though the two of them go hand in hand. The film's a bit of a road trip film. It's kind of about a older brother that gets out of jail and has to like rediscover his position in his family again. Then it's about a younger brother that's adopted into this Polish family in Detroit who has never really found his place in the world. And the two of them go on a road trip with a giant alien ray gun at hand. That's kind of where we're at. That's all we got. You want to make that movie? I want to see that movie.
It sounds a bit nuts, but it does all come together quite well. As you said, there's a strong storyline of the brothers that goes throughout this film. I mean, you've got Eli, who's young and easily manipulated by Jimmy, who's not necessarily the best person to have along on this ride. So can you guys tell me how much of that tale of brotherly comradeship is relatable to the two of you?
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, Josh came out of a 6-year stint at Lombok. And, I've been messing around with, like, alien tech for a good while, quite a while. No, look, a lot of the sort of early tonal stuff in the film with Eli was closer to our childhood growing up, exploring abandoned spaces and things like that. A lot of that nostalgia of just no words and just going out into these like older factories and things like that was something that we really loved as kids. It was about when we were exploring stuff as a kid, what if? And this is kind of the giant what if of kind of a sword in the stone fable of what if this kid found the most powerful thing in the universe and he's the only one that could wield it. And that kind of kicked off everything.
I mean, you guys have done fantastically well getting that cast together, and you also have Michael B. Jordan on board as an executive producer. I mean, how did you get them all to sign on?
Honestly, man, we just have really good luck. I think people like to jump on something when they see that it's kind of cool. And we were very lucky to have something cool to shop around town. I would say the first piece was getting Jack Reynor, who we thought did a wonderful job in Sing Street as the older brother. And he really encapsulated that indie sort of actor, that real actor's actor that was coming up and hadn't done a hell of a lot. And we just felt like we wanted to base it around these two sort of, unknowns in America. And then surrounding them, we wanted to lean into some more well-known talent. I mean, we talked for a long time about how the father being someone that we grew up with, knowing their face, and just an American icon, sort of hardworking blue collar face in Dennis Quaid. And then, for the Taylor, for the villain character, having James Franco was just so much fun to sort of, we love movies like Spring Breakers where he gets to just be a little bit more eccentric and his villainous charisma comes through. He's so hateable yet so likable at the same time. So that was just a delight. And then we've got Zoë Kravitz, who really was kind of our number one on the list, and it took us a while to get her. She was reading a lot of material at the time, but once we did, we went to lunch with her, and halfway through the lunch, she just looked at us and said, "You guys know I'm doing your movie, right?" And we were like, we know, but we do now. So, yeah, man, we're really lucky to get the cast that we did, and all of them were incredibly cool to work with.
It's great seeing Zoë Kravitz in that role. I mean, it's something so different for her, but it looks like she's having so much fun playing it.
Yeah, she is, man. She's got this authentic cool about her, and she's got this heart that she brings to a character. So, it's hard to see that without the sisterly or motherly kind of dynamic she brings to the brothers. And we really see the key relationship of family in this film being that three-character dynamic between the brothers and Millie that they meet on the road. I mean, the kin title really reaches into a lot of relationships in the film.
I've got to say, I think one of the strongest parts of the film is the on-screen relationship between Zoe and Miles Truitt.
Agreed.
I mean, where did you find him?
Miles was one that hadn't done that much, and we found him out of Atlanta. This is his first feature film, so we really kind of got to experience him maturing on screen, kind of like his character does. And so day one, he's, kind of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. And by day 47, there was a scene that he did with Zoe in the strip club that I just stood back, was very impressed with how far he'd come.
In terms of your working dynamic, you guys aren't just brothers, you're twins. So, I mean, do you think that brings something different to the filmmaking process when you're both working together?
I would say that the way we describe it is, just imagine you've got a clone of yourself, and that clone has independent thought and is just as creative as you are, and the two of you together get to make a movie. There's something about that not many people get to experience. It's a time-saving thing, as well as just a support system, a built-in support system around, the ideas that come about, and brainstorming and all of those things. I mean, directing is just making decisions at a mile a minute on set and before set and after set. And so having someone that has got your back there, that has the right intentions and no other agenda or anything like that, is really a comforting thing.
I mean, the way you guys describe it, it's almost like a family sci-fi film unto itself.
It kind of is. It kind of is, man. Yeah, I can see that.
Well, last but not least, we love to get film recommendations from all of our guests. The Switch team normally like to give their weekly cinematic suggestions, so I'd love to get both of your recommendations. Jonathan, maybe you could start us off?
Sure. This is royally putting me on the spot, but I think back to a film that was kind of referenced for Ken in a really weird way. Cinematography, definitely. Certainly for the look of it. It was called A Single Shot. It was directed by David Rosenthal, I think. It stars Sam Rockwell, and it's a very small sort of indie film about a hunter that ends up witnessing something in a small town. And it's just got a really beautiful aesthetic to it. This is Josh. I would say my pick I think back to things I've seen recently that really made an impact on me, and I would say Victoria, German crime film. I would imagine quite a few people have seen it at this point, but it's all one shot. And my mind is torn to pieces trying to think of how they made this work from the first minute all the way to the 2-hour mark of trying to follow through all of these locations and traveling across town in the one shot. Great film.
Yeah, we gave it a very positive recommendation on Switch as well. Jonathan and Josh, you guys are two Aussies doing some really cool stuff over in LA, so best of luck with Kin, and thanks so much for talking to Switch.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, man. Take it easy.
Kin hits Australian cinemas from today, and to find out more, head to kinmovie.com.au.
Strap yourselves in. We have some great giveaways up for grabs this week.
Whoop, whoop.
We are giving you the chance to win one of 5 double passes to see the brilliant McQueen in cinemas. The documentary is a thrilling rags-to-riches portrait of a complex artistic genius. Through exclusive interviews with McQueen's closest friends and family and never-before-seen archive footage, McQueen reveals an unmatched talent who expressed his darkest fantasies and greatest ambitions through his revolutionary designs and runway shows.
We're also giving away 5 double passes to see The Miseducation of Cameron Post in cinemas. Cameron Post, played by Chloe Grace Moretz, looks the part of the perfect high school girl. But after she's caught with another girl in the backseat of a car on prom night, Cameron is quickly shipped off to a conversion therapy centre that treats teens struggling with same-sex attraction. At the facility, Cameron is subjected to outlandish discipline and dubious de-gaying methods. But this unusual setting also provides her with an unlikely queer community.
You Were Never Really Here is heading to cinemas soon, and we're giving away 5 double passes to see the film yourself. Joe does a job no one else will. A war vet, an ex-FBI agent turned hitman, his new line of work includes rescuing children from pedophile rings. When he's hired to save a senator's daughter, the situation goes south. The duo are soon entangled in an unrelenting conspiracy of corruption, violence, and abuse.
We're also giving away 5 copies of Kodachrome on Blu-ray. Divorced and on the verge of losing his job at an independent record label, Matt Ryder, Jason Sudeikis, is surprised and confused to find a strange young woman, Elizabeth Olsen, waiting in his office. She works for his estranged father, Ben Ryder, Ed Harris, a prestigious photographer who is dying of cancer. She's come to convince Matt to drive Ben across the US to the last photo lab to develop a special kind of film, Kodachrome, before Kodak shuts down the lab for good and the final contribution to his legacy is lost.
The Lavazza Italian Film Festival is heading to cities across Australia soon, and we're giving you the chance to win a double pass to check it out. With 37 of the latest and greatest from Italy's best filmmakers, there's no shortage of passion, drama, romance and style for film lovers to enjoy. This year's festival includes the opening night Australian premiere of Loro, Happy as Lazzaro, Dogman, and the 1977 original version of Suspiria.
Last but not least, we're giving away 5 copies of 7 Days in Entebbe on DVD. The film is based on the 1976 true story of 4 hijackers who took a plane hostage and forced it to land in Entebbe, Uganda, while they demanded the release of dozens of Palestinian terrorists. The ticking clock thriller follows the hijackers and hostages, as well as the political leaders trying to decide whether to negotiate or send an elite special forces unit on a dramatic rescue mission to free the hostages.
And before we go, we'd like to offer you some cinematic inspiration, with each of us suggesting one film that you should see this week and why. For me, I'm going back to a bit of a classic. This is a 1988 film which is very special to me because I saw it so many times during my childhood. I got to relive it recently. It has one of the greatest soundtracks ever because largely of a gentleman named Harry Belafonte, which might give you a small hint as to what it is. It's back in the days when Tim Burton was actually a decent director. Yes, it is Beetlejuice!
Yay!
Beetlejuice! Beetlejuice!
Oh my god, he did it. He said it 3 times.
I did. He's sitting right behind me right now. But it also has an almost unrecognizable Alec Baldwin in it. He sounds the same, but he looks completely different.
He's half the size.
Yeah.
He is half the size. But it also has Gina Davis and Michael Keaton in it, who are both brilliant. But
what about Catherine O'Hara? Oh,
Catherine O'Hara is also in there. Okay, I'm trying to build up to this, people. Fucking hell.
We won't let you, we're just so excited.
As they say, yes, it also has a super young Winona Ryder And the conclusion of the film is possibly one of the most joyous experiences that you will ever have, again, set to a brilliant Harry Belafonte song. So, yes, my pick for the week is, I implore you to go and find Beetlejuice and enjoy that taste of the 80s. All right, well, Jess, it's your turn. What have you got?
All right, I'm continuing my theme of recommending documentaries this week. This was one of my favourite films of the year. It was in my top 5 list. It premiered in Australia at the Sydney Film Festival. It's currently, very excitedly, on Netflix. It is called Tickle. Now, again, this is one of those films where I cannot tell you too much because it's about so much more than it appears to be, but I will leave you with this. It is, and it also isn't, about competitive endurance tickling.
Oh, no thanks. I hate being tickled.
Take that how you will, but I implore everyone to see this, again, yet another extraordinary documentary that is so hilarious and so disturbing at the same time. It is by New Zealand filmmakers, and yes, Netflix people, the joyous Netflix has it, so no excuses, you have to see this film. Tickle.
Very good, Jess. And last but not least, Brent, what are you bringing to the table this week?
Well, I've decided to start talking about films that I've found formative to me and my current personality and who I am today.
Your current personality?
Well, we ebb and flow as people, but that's another podcast. I've been raking my brain archives for films that I think had a really strong influence on my personality, and I found this one from 1999. It is joyous. It is funny. It is probably the best thing that has come out of Saturday Night Live since 30 Rock, but it was well before that. I am talking, obviously, about Superstar, the Mary Catherine Gallagher story.
Oh my God.
I
thought you were going to go with Night at the Roxbury there for a second.
Night at the Roxbury is also on the list, so don't worry. But it's Superstar.
Coming soon.
Molly Shannon, Will Ferrell. It is just so brilliant and so ludicrous and so funny. There's a scene where she sings Out There on My Own from Fame, which I've done on multiple occasions. It's just a joy, and it's stupid comedy, but just so well done. Yeah, thank you, Molly Shannon and Superstar.
Thank you for your gift.
And Mary Catherine Gallagher for giving me permission to dare to dream. So go see Superstar, have a couple of wines, it'll be a great Friday night, I promise you.
And then afterwards you can put your fingers in your armpits and then smell them like that.
Well, a little bit of something for everybody there today. And you can find the links to all the articles that we've talked about on this week's podcast at maketheswitch.com.au. Please subscribe to SWITCHCast on iTunes or your favourite podcast platform, and don't forget to rate us. And stay in touch on Twitter. I'm at Charlie_David. Jess?
I'm at MissJess_Switch.
And Brent?
At Brent C. Davidson.
Like it, follow it. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at MakeTheSwitchAU to stay up to date with all the latest reviews, news, trailers, and giveaways.
And you can find all the notes and links to everything we've discussed on this week's podcast, as well as all our other episodes, which are gold, by the way, by visiting switchcast.com.au.
On next week's show, I'll have my review of the music drama Hearts Beat Loud.
And Jake is braver than all of us for checking out The Nun.
Plus, I'll have my verdict on both McQueen and the Miseducation of Cameron Post. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you all next week.